He is the king of the America's Cup. Absolutely no question about it. He's won it 5 times. Russell Coutts answers all the questions tonight about the America's Cup, about his involvement with Oracle, about what he thinks of Dalton, what he thinks of Barker. An in-depth interview with the champ of the America's Cup. And then, is this man going to be a champ? Robert the Butcher Berridge. He's with us. He's only lost 1 professional fight. He's got 27 wins to his name. You don't hear a lot about him. You're going to enjoy meeting him tonight. But first up, Russell Coutts.
I thought maybe I'd have a tear or two, but I didn't at all.
I know you didn't.
Just a normal Kiwi bloke who's, playing for the All Blacks.
The PM said, oh, Lydia is a Kiwi, so you can't take her.
And then when we beat them by 8 seconds, I was just like, right, where are you?
I'd never leave, even if it was for millions and millions of dollars.
Deaker.
If you'd said to me 10 years ago that I would be sitting at the front of my house having a lovely conversation with Russell Coutts, I'd have said you're mad. If you think back, you'll be aware that at that time I was one of the leading figures of Blackheart. I thought Coutts had let us down, he'd taken off, and certainly I let this country know how I felt about it. And I always thought that there would be times when I would feel exactly the same way. Recently I ran into Russell Coutts. I was having a couple of guys on in the main street of Takapuna, and I heard this voice say behind me, "Don't take any notice of him, he's full of bull." And I thought, who's that? I thought it was one of my mates, and I turned around and it was Russell Coutts. And I had a cup of coffee in my hands, and the other 2 blokes moved on, and he said to me, "You going to drink that? It's time you and I had a yarn." And we sat down and had a yarn. It's probably as a result of that yarn that I've interviewed him on News Talk ZB, and the interview that you are about to watch is a result of that. Not so much Murray Deaker bending over, but Russell Coutts showing his true professionalism and coming on. This interview occupies the first 2 parts of this program. It is 25 minutes, and it is something that I think that will give you a good insight into Russell Coutts. Here's what happened. Russell, you've been involved in winning the America's Cup 5 times now. Now, there are a lot of New Zealanders like me. I'm getting sick and tired of us getting second. So is there any possibility that you're going to come back here and be involved in a New Zealand challenge?
Well, obviously I've thought about that in the past. Actually, I spoke to the people in 2007, about the same time that I was talking to Larry. But that didn't work out, and obviously there's been a lot of water gone under the bridge since then, and I really haven't made a decision on next time. I'm just setting some stuff up. We're setting up some things now for the next event, and take my time basically and decide what, if anything, I do with the America's Cup.
Are you committed to Oracle? I'm not talking about contracts, I'm just talking about, say, moral commitment, or do you feel that you're committed to Oracle?
Oh, well, I've definitely got a fantastic, relationship with Larry Ellison, he's been good to me, and, I obviously owe him a lot, and I actually must say I've enjoyed my time working with him. He's in my view, he's been very fair. He's tough, but fair, and it's been a good situation.
But you're tough too. You're fair, and you're tough, and you're direct. So there wouldn't be a problem with the relationship, would there?
Well, I guess you hear a lot of things about Larry, and I've my experience is all I can really rate, and I've had a good situation and a good time with, working with them.
So let me revisit this question that I opened with, because I have to say I get a lot of people ringing up on radio. A lot of people stop me in the street and say, do you think Coutts will ever come back and sail for New Zealand? Because they're like me.
Well, I can tell you I won't sail again,
But you could be involved. You could be talked into being involved.
Oh, who knows? But in all honesty, I think if Larry wanted me involved, and it seems that he would, I'd probably find it hard to walk away from him, after all he's done for me. I'd like to see New Zealand do well too, so I guess I'm not answering the question, but yeah, I'm thinking about things.
You're thinking about things, so all options are open still. Do you still get a real buzz out of the America's Cup, I guess I'm saying?
I got a buzz out of the last one. The thing is, they've all been different, very different. There's different from the team aspects. Each time there's different factors that end up determining who wins. And that's the fun part about it. You finish one campaign and you kind of think, okay, these were the determining factors. And a lot of people seem to think if you repeat that, those factors, then you'll have a good chance of winning the next time. Invariably, it ends up being a different set of key factors that then determine the winner for the next one. So I've always found that interesting. Everyone's been different, and particularly the challenges of the event and the last one were interesting. In the media sense and television. The challenges we had with the venue and commercially. All learning and good to be part of.
So what were the key factors this time that led to Oracle's win 9-8, particularly after being down 8-1? What would you say were the key factors?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. We're still actually thinking about that now. I think we tend to focus on what went wrong, and how did we get ourselves in that position where we were 8-1 down.
Imagine if these guys lost from here. What an upset that would be. They've almost got it in the bag.
I think the key factors were, some of the people on board the boat were very strong mentally. To come back from 8-1 down is tough.
So we're talking Spittle for a start.
Spittle,
well, he's tough.
Yeah, Tommy Slingsby was,
right.
I think, was had a fantastic campaign. Some of the design team really performed at the end. They really worked hard. Through in what was a very difficult situation. Ainsley, of course, fantastic. Had a very good. That's never worked in the past before, to change one of your key afterguard. It's never worked, especially during the series or even late in the piece. It hasn't worked, and he came in knowing that. And was able to make obviously a big difference.
And you and Spittle knew that too. You made the call, and you've told me on radio that you made it in conjunction with the American, JK as you call him, who you took off. So it was a team decision to make that call.
Yeah, I think in sports, sometimes, no matter what the athlete is or who they are and what their record's been, sometimes they go through tough times where they're just not performing to their abilities, and that was clearly what was happening with JK. By his own admission, he just was having a bad regatta, and the communication between JK and Slingsby had broken down and really wasn't working, and so it was a drastic change, to make, but we felt it was worth the risk. And
so, okay, we've got good people. You had 110 people in what you call the shore crew, and I looked at that and thought, well, that's helpful, because you had to make a lot of changes, because clearly you were behind for such a long period of time. 8-1, you're behind.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it was even worse than that. Early on, we were getting beaten by a better team and a faster boat.
Yep.
And so we had to make some pretty dramatic changes to turn that around, you know, and realise that. So in a way, it was the picture was clear, which, you know, you look back on. If it had been closer, maybe the decisions would have been more difficult.
Tell me, what happens to you? I said before you're tough, and everybody knows that you are. Were you at a stage of thinking, hell, I don't think we're going to pull this off?
Oh, you know, I mean, all of us had our doubts. I mean, when you're that far back, you know, but you know, we just made a decision to keep plugging away, and you know, even before the series started, you know, one of our, I guess, it was one of my opinions was that whatever team learns the most during the series will probably win this, you know.
Right.
I didn't think it'd be that graphic, you know, but you know, I knew it was going to be pretty close, and I knew that there was you know, we were still on the steep part of the learning curve, and still are, you know, I'd add, you know, I think it's only really just, you know, the learning in these boats is only just beginning. And, you know, therefore, you know, it was important to keep an open mind and keep learning throughout. I think that was one of the factors, actually, how hard the team worked during the regatta. You know, they didn't have a day off, even on the days that were scheduled for no racing. They went out and worked at it every single day, and the shore crew worked through the night to maintain the boat, you know.
The whole thing was your dream, and there must have been a time when you thought, hey, this is turning to pop
more than one time.
because of the Louis Vuitton. Now, it was boring, it was one-sided, it wasn't even a contest. So you were saved, basically, because Team New Zealand were as good as they were, and the America's Cup Regatta was something we were all talking about.
Yeah, well, you know, it was kind of obvious the way it was shaping up that there were going to be two very even teams, or let's say very equally matched teams, and that would be, you know, quite a race, you know. None of us really thought. I mean, I certainly didn't think it would be that, you know. I guess that many lead changes and that close, you know. Nobody thought it would go right to the end, and the last race would decide it. So, you know, from that regard, from that aspect, it worked out, you know, fantastically well. But, you know, it was a brand new concept, and, you know, many of the teams like Artemis and even Luna Rossa, they probably would have done a lot better had they had more time on the boat. You know, in, you know, both our team, you know, Oracle Team USA and Team New Zealand were just always ahead and just stayed ahead, you know. Luna Rossa and Artemis made some big gains at the end, but it was all too late.
So, Russell, now you face a dilemma, because it was your dream to put this on. It was almost like an F1 on the water. And we saw two teams come through, but we know how expensive it is, and you want more teams in the event the next time. So what type of boats are you going to go to?
Well, you know, I think that's you got to talk to the teams and see what the level of budget, you know, they can. You know,
and are you
afford.
doing that? Are you going to do that?
Yeah, I'm going to do some of that, but you know, there's no question. The budget's got to come down by a lot, and so it's how you.
What would you say is reasonable?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't like to speculate before you know, speaking with the other teams, but it's got to come down a lot, probably half of
what was this time.
You know, yeah. So something in that order.
Well, what about the AC45s? Were they? You know, you were pretty committed to those as well. Could you have an America's Cup in those?
Well, if you had have asked me that 3 months ago, I would have said yes, you know, and that was certainly the way that I know Larry Ellison was thinking and so forth. But then the bigger boats were so compelling, you know, that if you could find a way to reduce the cost sufficiently in those by perhaps making some of the components one design, or, I mean, the big cost is reducing the number of people, really. If you can reduce the number of people, then you know, that's the best way to reduce the cost, because, you know, in our case, you know, it was around about 56% of our budget was people, and that's typical of these campaigns. So you've really got to attack that number to really make a big impact on the costs.
What about the time between the regattas? Like, are we going to have to wait another 4 years? Is 2 years the ideal time between races, between regattas?
Oh, I'm not sure about that. I mean.
Too short?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
I mean, it was quite a nice year in terms of fitting in with Olympics and World Cup soccer, and it was quite a nice window. You could position it better for the American sports calendar. So it's probably sometime in June or August. But you've got to be careful to position it, such that because obviously a lot of the big commercial partners have their budget set a long time in advance, and it's got to fit in with what they're already, involved with. Otherwise, you exclude a whole lot of, potential commercial partners. So it's probably a 4-year cycle is the right one. You've got to find some way of reducing the cost for the team, and there are ways to do this, reducing the cost for the teams in between. America's Cup World Series worked well.
Yes.
That was a low-cost platform that created enough visibility for the commercial partners and the broadcasters, and generally speaking, the broadcasters really like that format and would like to see something like that happen again.
Russell, you've made a lot of money out of the America's Cup and out of sailing and out of your skill. And sailing is your passion. So you're now at a stage possibly where, because this was your dream, you're looking to leave a legacy of the America's Cup where people are going to get excited, not just about two boats on each other, but perhaps a proper Louis Vuitton, a great America's Cup. So if you were able to have that dream, what would it be? Would it be the big catamarans that we've got now with a lot of teams? And is that the ideal? I guess I'm asking, what goes on in your head when you think of the ideal America's Cup?
Well, the last final was a pretty good starting point, isn't it? I mean, that was pretty compelling racing. So if you can find a format where that sort of event is being delivered on a more regular basis, let's say. I mean, I think the Louis Vuitton Cup, even if you had more teams, was just too long. It's just way too long. So perhaps that's got to be broken up somehow, maybe in different venues. Who knows? That's the job. That's the job over the next,
That is your job now, because you're the guy who's got. Hey, I introduced it. I said you've won it 5 times in a row. You are now, whether you like it or not. You're Mr. America's Cup. No question about that in anyone's mind. You know how to win it. You know how to administer it. You know where it could go, and it's going to be your dream that we're going to hook into. Quite seriously.
There's obviously now though is the time to learn the lessons from last time.
Yep.
And there's a whole bunch of lessons, not only related to the teams, but the event side that you can learn from. Make it better, make it more sustainable, make it more commercially on a better commercial platform. And that's if there's one criticism I had of our approach last time, we rushed things at the beginning. And those decisions you generally have to live with. You've got to get those decisions right, And so we had several of the wrong sort of people involved early on. That cost us a lot, a lot of time, a lot of money was wasted. So we've got to learn lessons from that, and.
Now, after the break, more with Sir Russell Coutts. Particularly, what does he think of Dalton? What does he think of Barker? Does he think that this country should be in again the next time? Back with Russell Coutts in just a moment, but first, our Tui hard case moment. And you've never seen our flag like this. Have a look.
No, it can't be bad if you're up here in the air-conditioned commentary box. That is for sure. It's still very humid, sticky. And there's a slight fluttering of the flags. Not much. Yes, and I think someone's going to get shot over that flag. Oh, the New Zealand one, it's upside down. Someone's going to get in a lot of trouble for that.
I know you haven't been back in New Zealand long, but you always keep your ear pretty close to the ground. Have you been surprised about the reception that Team New Zealand have had, having led 8-1 and then get beaten? To me, if it had been the All Blacks up 30-0 at half-time and they were beaten 31-0, the country would have ripped them apart. But these guys are almost been treated like heroes after basically blowing it. Has it surprised you?
I haven't really thought too much about it, to be honest, you know. I mean, it was a fantastic, you know, and I'm not just saying this, it was a fantastic effort from Team New Zealand. In fact, I think it's one of the best Team New Zealand campaigns ever. Even the ones that you know, won the America's Cup. This one was, you know, they led not only, you know, in the racing, but a lot of the innovation they led with, you know, and that was, they made a lot of the right decisions along the way. It was impressive to see, you know. You know, I mean, obviously, you know, if they had their time again, they'd probably do things differently during the series and maybe even prior to the series, you know, but they overall a pretty solid effort.
So how do you see New Zealand being involved in the future? Because while the costs are as high as that, there's got to be government funding going in. At the moment, the whole thing is not transparent, and I believe it really should be. So do you see New Zealand sailors still being involved on a lot of boats? Like, I think you had 6 sailors in your sailing team who were Kiwis. Some of those blokes have been with you a long time. Do you see them still filling in other teams? Do we need, in other words, a brand Team New Zealand?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, you know, I think the industry here, I think actually it's an opportunity to grow the industry here. You know, the reputation that New Zealand has in this industry, not only in you know, for example, the boat building, but all the other skills that you know, are connected with it. You know, it's pretty incredible when you travel the world and you see what a high regard, you know, the people from this country in this industry have. You know, and I think not only this industry, but as a, you know, sort of a showcase for a technology platform. You know, I mean, yeah, it's not New Zealand's core business, that's for sure. You know, and I'm talking technology in a wider sense. But it's a great thing to be showcasing the world, because I think people get a different impression of New Zealand when they see a New Zealand team competing at a sport like that and competing well. It just puts New Zealand on another level.
And so we come to Dalton, and I know that you and he do things totally differently, and you're on record as saying that.
We don't always see eye to eye.
That would be the understatement of the whole lot. Is there a place for him still in heading this up, or is it time for a change? He's had a fair crack, so and it appears to me as though he's angling for another go. What's your take on that?
Well, you know, it's not my decision, first off, you know. I know what Larry Ellison would do.
What would he do, Russell?
Well, I think, you know, it's pretty obvious. You know, Larry's very straight in terms of, you know, I'll give you this role, you can make the decisions. He quite often will come in and direct things if he thinks that they needs to be done. But by and large, he'll let you go. You know,
and if you don't produce it, that's your lot.
And you know that if you don't produce, and I think he's like that in all of his businesses. You know, and I think, you know, sometimes, you know, it's healthy on both sides. It's the thing. One of the, you know, key things I've learned from him is, you know, that if you perform, you get rewarded, and, you know, if you want to stay, you can stay. But if you don't, you know, then both parties know that you're no longer there.
If you'd been beaten, he would have dropped you.
Yeah, even if it was 8-7, you know, he would have dropped me. Yeah.
That's it. So very clear cut what somebody like him expects in the way of performance.
Yeah, both parties know. You know what you've got to do. You know, you're there to do a job, and if you don't do it, you're out. You know, no matter what. He's interesting. You know, if you try and make any excuses with him, I tried it once, and I'll never try it again, you know. He just doesn't take excuses well.
Would he make the same decision on Barker?
Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, there's. I mean, I thought he did a great job. You know, with you know, putting that whole effort together.
But at the end of the day, you're judged by winning. As I said, 5 America's Cups you've now been involved in.
Well, the other thing,
how many chances do you get?
Yeah, the other thing you got to look at too is if the next event was in 2017, then what does the picture look like? It's not today. You know, and a lot, as I said before, a lot of the key decisions are made right at the start of the campaign, and if you get them wrong, generally pretty hard to shift the train onto a new track. You know, so there's a tremendous amount of talent in New Zealand. I think even if you just limited yourself to, you know, having only Kiwis on the boat. There's a tremendous amount of talent here. I mean, there's a bunch of young guys. I liken it to like the 1984 era. New Zealand in the Olympic team and so forth had a very high level of success, and then that moved on to the you know, bigger boats. Seeing the same sort of situation in New Zealand today, where you know there's guys like Peter Burling went out and won the Red Bull Youth America's Cup.
And Tteam.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of them. Even some of them aren't that active at the moment, unfortunately, you know. Yeah, you know, and average age on Oracle Tteam USA, 32.
I was just going to come to that, okay, because there are guys that have been with you for a long time, and I wondered if we're about to see a changing of the guard.
I think for sure, you're already seeing it.
Right.
You're already seeing it.
So young Kiwis will be able to get jobs.
Well, they should be. Yeah. They should be given a shot, you know. I mean, it's you look at all kinds of sports teams, even in New Zealand, let's say, you know, look at how the All Blacks have evolved and are developing. You know, it's fantastic to see that, and you know, that's what that was one of the things that we found, and I think it was probably one of the factors in such a long final was that. And it was one of the takeaways from past America's Cups. Past America's Cup, you said you need experience to win, you know, on board the boat, you know. And this one we had, you know, a pretty young team, and yet when the pressure really got put on them at the end, they just performed better and better and better and better, you know. And I think you're going to see the Nathan Outridges of this world and the Tommy Slingsbys and so forth come through even better. And the new guys that are now, you know, 18, 20 years old coming through. And
what about you? Are you going to be the grand old gentleman of all this?
Hey, look, I mean, the funny thing is, you know, people ask me, you know, do you miss not being on the boat? And the answer is not really. You know, I mean, I had a fantastic career on board the boat. You know, and enjoyed every minute of it. But it's also each time I've done one of these campaigns, I've done something different, and each one's been challenging in its own ways. You know, it's in different ways, and that's the fun part about it. You know, the game's changed, and you know, I've been fortunate enough to change with it. You know, because you can sit there and not change and be left behind, or you change with it. And I've changed with it. Pretty obvious to me, this last one, that if I was doing the job correctly, there wouldn't be you know, I'm 51. I wouldn't be on board the boat.
Well, there's a lot of people that would like you involved in getting us, because as I said in opening this, we're sick and tired of getting second. It's time to win it. But congratulations to you for everything that you have done in the America's Cup and for the spectacle that we all enjoyed. I thought halfway through the Louis Vuitton, Coutts has blown it. This is a load of you-know-what. But no, the final was fantastic, and I congratulate you on it and on Oracle's performance.
Yeah, thanks very much.
I hope you got some answers and some insight into Russell Coutts. It was a very fascinating interview.